when you say that the physical universe doesn't exist until it's observed, like, what do you mean by that? So when ancient man was laying on the ground staring up at the stars before we had light pollution, and they saw the spectacle of the Milky Way and all the galaxies, like,
Right.
that stuff existed before they looked at it, no?
No, that stuff, when they look, that is just lights in the sky. Doesn't mean any more than lights in the sky. That's what they see as lights in the sky. That's what they got. But now it looks at the rule set. What did evolve? You know, it's an evolution. So what did evolve? Well, the galaxies and the Milky Way being one of them was one of the things that the rule set said would happen.
But they didn't have the rule set at the time, right? They just observed galaxies.
They just look up there, and all they saw were dots of light.
Right.
Those dots of light didn't have to be a sun.
But those
or
dots of
anything
life
else.
were a sun, and they were 13.7 billion years old, which is the what's supposed life of the universe so far.
But the thing is, they weren't a sun. They were as if there was a sun there. They just were dots of light.
But what happened 13.7 billion years ago then, when there was a Big Bang? So if there was a Big Bang and all of this physical reality emerged from that, you're saying it didn't exist until people observed it?
No, I'm saying that all this physical stuff didn't emerge. It's all just calculation. It's a virtual reality. And until somebody looks at it, it's not a thing. It's just a potential to be a thing. So
if consciousness never existed, what would the physical universe be?
There wouldn't be one.
Whoa, okay.
There wouldn't be one.
I'm trying to follow along with you here. But consciousness itself, in terms of human beings, is fair. If we're looking at time the same way, if we're agreeing on what the measurement of time is, human beings have only been around for, let's be really generous and say 1 million years.
That's
really generous.
Very generous. 200,000 is what I've heard.
No, it's changing.
Homo sapien. But
yeah, but it's changing. It's
Okay.
changing quite a bit. I mean, they've found a human skull that's 1 million years old.
well,
It's not us, but it's a
Yeah.
human. So there's obviously, with the recent discovery of Denisovans, we know that there was another type of human being that was larger than us that lived alongside with us. And then we're also only dealing with the fossil record, right? So the fossil record is incredibly incomplete because it's very difficult to leave behind a fossil, especially when you're talking about a bone that's 1 million years old.
exactly.
So we're kind of expanding as time goes on. They've found structures now that human beings have built that are far older than we thought people were making anything. So in terms of, like, what was that one that Michael Button discovered? It was a wooden structure that it shows like a joint where these really ancient, like, pre-Homo sapien humans had developed some sort of a building. And because it was preserved somehow or another, maybe peat bog or something like that. So now they understand that the evidence is that human beings, in terms of the ability to create things, use tools, do a lot of the stuff, ritual burials, they've found that pre-exists where we thought it would exist, or it predates where we thought it would exist. So just like, let's be like super generous and say 1 million years.
Okay.
Just take a guess. So if that's what we agree to as consciousness, how does that dictate things that happened billions of years before it ever existed? If we do agree that the Big Bang happened, and we do agree that all these galaxies and everything that we see in the sky and solar nurseries and all that craziness, black holes, all of that emerged from this event that happened 13 whatever billion years ago. How is that possible that consciousness is that this stuff doesn't exist without consciousness if this stuff predates consciousness?
It's all part of a simulation. That matter doesn't exist. It's just all part of a simulation. If you're in, The Sims, and you go up and you lie down on the ground at night, you look up, you'll probably see stars, little dots of light. Okay. Now, if Sims had a backstory, then maybe that's, they could say, oh, those are, 5 billion years old or something. but they don't. So it's just little dots of light. Now, if you went to examine those and you look at it, then the system would have to come up with something. In other words, if I go up there and I get my rocket ship into the Sims character and I go up and I want to look at that thing, well, now that's a new, that's like a new fact, because I'm going to go up and measure it. This is the measurement problem. You go up and measure it. As soon as you measure it, the system has to create something that's there that you measure. It gets created there. Now you go back. Now all you see is a dot of light, and that's all it has to be rendered is a dot of light, because nobody's looking at that thing. But if somebody else next year goes up and looks at that exact same spot at that light, they'll have to see the same thing that you saw.
Is it possible that they're not mutually exclusive, and that physical reality exists independently of consciousness, but consciousness is an intrinsic part of physical reality, and that the emergence of consciousness altered physical reality and altered possibilities, but that physical reality has always existed, which would make sense if you follow the pathway between the chemical reaction, allegedly, or whatever it was, that created cellular life, and then multicellular life, and then ultimately intelligent creatures that develop consciousness. We know there's a pathway to get to that. So we assume this pathway existed and predates consciousness. Isn't it possible that physical reality exists as well as consciousness and consciousness's impact on physical reality?
Not in my model. That's not
Well, how
possible.
do you
It's just the nature of a virtual reality.
I understand, but how do you reckon with this whole idea of biological life's emergence and then consciousness coming out of that? That was a thing that existed. We didn't just snap into place with consciousness and all of a sudden the physical reality emerged with us. Physical reality was always here. Volcanoes were here.
Right.
We almost were wiped out by them, right?
Yeah.
The asteroids were here. All these things are here. The Earth was created. It was here.
So I would say that the Earth was being calculated, and eventually it evolved right from the initial conditions in a rule set, and it takes time, and eventually it had cells, and those cells were single-celled things, and then they became multi-celled things, and then they became differentiated cells that had special function, like breathing and locomotion and stuff.
Physical reality.
All of that took place in the computer. Remember, you hit the run button, big digital bang, and it computes. So all of that took place in the computer inside.
So all of it really didn't exist until we existed.
No, it all was being computed as an evolution. So the evolution was being done inside a computer.
Okay.
Okay. So it evolved. So those single cells evolved, and it was for the same reasons that we have it when you talk about it in physical. So it all evolved to be the way it was, and eventually humans evolved too. It's not that consciousness was created when humans were evolved. The whole thing was developed as a simulation. The idea being eventually that you'd get something like a human that would then be able to more effectively have choices to evolve the whole system.